Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Our inspirator arrived. He is taking his jacket off, so he'll be up here shortly to inspire us all, get us going for the day. David Cox.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the Toastmasters du jour for the theme. It's travel. It wasn't that long ago that I was sitting in my car, frozen with fear, outside of a ladies' gymnasium. I was going to go in for a Zumba class. He said, "Listen, Dave, you've been telling people for 25 years, you have to leave your comfort zone." I mustered up my courage and went in. That's what we do at Toastmasters. We gain confidence. Should you ever be in the same position in regards to travel, instead of getting out of your car and going to the gym, get in the car and go. And remember, if travel was free, you'd never see me.
That was great, Dave. Nice words of inspiration today. If everybody could stand, and we'll do a flash of the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Couple announcements before we start. I'm sure there'll be some at the end as well. Some of our Toastmasters went to Lockport High School and did a great meeting on Friday, the DECA meeting. And we had a number of people, Kate, Eric, Len, Nancy, I'm sure there was more, that went and represented the club well and taught the high schoolers a few tips on public speaking. And Kristen Badgerbach is usually the one that wrangles everybody for that. So good job. It was a very positive meeting, I hear. I just want to give kudos to our Toastmasters that are inspiring the next generation. So, good job. Any announcements from other people that I want in the beginning? I'm sure I'll have some at the end. I know some people don't make it to the end to drop off. Okay, so let's welcome our Toastmaster today, David Jones, with our theme of travel.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, we are still missing a general evaluator. As Jen had to drop, so I don't know if anybody's available for that. And also want to make sure Toastmaster Smith is available to go. I believe he's our alternative speaker.
He is ready to go, yes.
Perfect.
He did talk to his evaluator already.
Is Phil waving as general evaluator? All right, Phil is our general evaluator. Perfect.
All right, thank you for stepping up, Phil. Appreciate it.
All right.
Who is online?
Good morning. Oh, go ahead, do it.
Yes, so online we have Anne Marie Lenhart, Carol Halstead, Margot, Sue Bittner, Mark Campos. Not sure who else. Can you slide her over? Eric Schneider, Phil Russell, and Marty Johnson. Is that everybody? Okay. In the room for Mark is doing table topics. We have Nancy Ferry, Sylvia Baptiste, Jackie Kenny, Tom Heldline, Joe Roaring, Steve Smith, Mark Crane, Mike Licata, and Dave Licata, and myself. And I guess I see Katie and Beth also online.
Perfect.
That's everybody. Can I assist you any other way, Mr. Toastmaster?
No, sir, I appreciate it.
All right, it's all you.
All right. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. As mentioned, my theme today is travel, the places we want to go and the places we've been. Being from Miami, our go-to, having two daughters, was always cruises. Every time I would crunch the number, cruises were always the most economical vacation for us. And we did have the advantage of living in Miami because we could just drive over to the port. We didn't have to fly. We didn't have to get a hotel before and after. So it was always a win for us to take cruises. And any cruise was my favorite vacation, and any cruise is my favorite future vacation. And throughout this morning, I'm going to ask you all about your favorite vacations, places you've been. And I'll also throw in some tips about why we should travel. And I'm first going to start with number one, which was one of my favorite places. Number one, it broadens our perspective when we travel. We get to see different types of lives. We get to understand other cultures. I was in the Isle of Capri in Italy once and was with the family, and we're walking around. It was beautiful, and it was in the afternoon, and all of a sudden a bunch of school children started coming up. They were going home from school, and it was just something I didn't expect, being on vacation in another world or another country and seeing school children going about their normal lives. And my father-in-law was from Cuba, and he spoke Spanish, and they speak Italian, and the languages are similar. So he sat there and he talked to these school children. So it was a very nice perspective for us to be on vacation in such a faraway place from us and get to see the general cultures. So throughout the morning, again, I'm going to ask you about your favorite vacations, and I'm going to start with Eric, since he is our word master. Eric, you want to tell us about one of your favorite places?
Sure, I can do that. Years ago, me, mom, my sisters, my brother, we all went to Arizona a couple of times because my grandparents used to have a condo in Tucson. So we will go to places that were so fun to do and meet some of the neighbors who my grandparents lived across from their place. So it was one of the best times ever. Regretfully, we never went to the Grand Canyon. We flew over the Grand Canyon, but regretfully, we had not gone physically over to the Grand Canyon. So the word of the day, I will put it in the chat, is, oh my God, I just had it. Today's word of the day is escape, because we're escaping to our travel. We're escaping to travel. We're escaping the cold. We're escaping to our favorite place that is warm. So please use escape in table topics, speeches, and I will tally up the word as we move along today. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. And once upon a time, my wife and I were on vacation in Vegas, and we escaped to the Grand Canyon. My wife is not very adventurous, so we literally drove there, looked at it. About 10 minutes later, we left and went back to Vegas. That was not her thing. Sylvia, do you want to tell us about your role as the and grammarian?
Yes. This morning, I will be counting the ahs, ums, pregnant pauses, and grammarian. I'm hoping to not find the English, I can't even say it today, English language, and the pronunciation of words incorrectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Anne Marie, you look like a world traveler. Do you have any stories about travel? And also tell us about your quote master role.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Can you hear me? Yeah. I guess my two favorite places, one is San Jose, California, because my son is there, and I have 3 little grandchildren who I always enjoy seeing. And my second favorite place is in Italy, Sicily, which is very adventurous and also always has excellent food. So today I have a couple of quotes for you, very short. The first one is, jobs fill your pockets, but adventure fills your soul. The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page. Travel is the only thing you buy that makes you richer. And of all the books in the world, the best stories are found between the pages of your passport. And last, travel opens your heart, broadens your mind, and fills your life with stories to tell. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Anne Marie. Appreciate it. Another tip for how travel can impact your life, and Dave Licata mentioned it, it grows confidence. While I was with my ex-wife for 25 years, she took care of all the travel, from planning it to paying for it with my money, but she did everything. After we were divorced, my younger daughter wanted to go on a cruise. And I was scared because I had never planned a trip, especially out of the country. And I didn't know if I had enough money or if I was going to do things right, that I have the right passports. And eventually we went on the trip. Everything was fine. My main concern is I didn't want to be one of those people at the end. I don't know how many of you have been on cruises, but the last day is always fun because they start calling Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, Mr. Green, please come to the purser's office because your credit card didn't have enough money to cover the bill. So you have to go have a chat with them. I didn't want to be that person. Fortunately, I wasn't, but it gained confidence that I could book a cruise and do it on my own with my daughter. And next up, and Dr. Stevens, you do have a few minutes because we're ahead of schedule. I'm sure you have plenty of travel stories, but could you tell us about your role also as the jester?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hard to pick one or two favorite places. I guess culturally, I would say Jerusalem would be my favorite in regards to international travel. So much rich history there. In regards to local travel, I would say I have to pick a national park, which I've talked about many times. Yosemite is my favorite national park, but it is very hard to pick for sure. There's so many beautiful places in the world, and I love the quotes that Anne Marie had. I send me those, Anne Marie, if you would. I will write them somewhere. In regards to my joke of the day, I will give you a fair warning. They are a little punny today, so it's the best I could find. In honor of Oktoberfest, I will tell an Oktoberfest joke as well. I'm so sick of hearing German sausage jokes. They are the worst. Oh, I warned you in advance. What's the problem with flying on Peter Pan Airways? They never land. My fear of moving stairs at the airport never stops escalating. That's my really funny jokes for today. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Another way travel can impact your life is it teaches us patience. America is very unique in how we're always rushing to the next thing. We are very time sensitive, and other cultures aren't like that. They're more chill. They like to enjoy the moment and relax. And when we're overseas, usually we have to check our patience because people aren't rushing as much. Even customer service, they're sitting there enjoying their coffee and tea. Go to Jamaica, no problem. So we learn to just enjoy the moment because there's no rushing in most countries. And speaking of time, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn, who is our timer this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My favorite vacation trip was probably 1998. Went to a destination wedding in the Czech Republic with my then fiance. It was in a small town called Český Krumlov. Had a great time there. Created a lot of mayhem with the locals. Of course, the Bills lost the Super Bowl to the Giants that weekend. That was kind of tough. But then we went from there to Salzburg and then back through to Paris and visited some friends of mine in France from when I spent a semester there. So great trip. Saw a lot of things, had a great time. My role today as timer is to keep everybody on track with the time parameters for their giving opportunity to speak. With table topics, it is 1 to 2 minutes with a 15-second buffer. And you'll see green, yellow, and red backgrounds on the room cam here. Evaluations 2 to 3 minutes, 30-second buffer, and unless told otherwise, speeches 5 to 7 minutes with a 30-second buffer. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. And I do believe, I don't want to step on the general evaluator's toes, but I do believe Marty's is 10 to 12 minutes, just an FYI. Another reason we travel, it lets you meet new people. Whenever you're on vacation, you get to meet people. There was an instance where I was on a cruise once down in the Caribbean, and I met a lovely lady, and we hit it off and we started dating. The problem was she lived in Vancouver, Canada. If you ever look on a map at Charlotte to Vancouver, it was a long but short-lived relationship. It did not work out well. It was a lot of traveling. And next up is going to be our quiz master, Mark Crane. Do you want to tell us about your role?
Well, for those of you who are at home, I'm Mark Crane and I'm the quiz master today. That means I have to be very attentive on listening today. So I got to be an active listener and try to stump you folks on who said what and when did they say it. And hopefully I'll be able to do a good job with that. So thank you, and we'll be talking to you later.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mark. Now I'm going to give my vocals a rest, and I'm going to turn, oh, before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to our general evaluator, Phil. Tell us about your role.
Hi, thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. My role as general evaluator is to evaluate yourself as the Toastmaster, a little evaluation on that. So far, it's really great. You have one of my most favorite themes of all times, and everything starting on time, and also to evaluate the meeting, how the meeting went. Now, one thing, oh, the evaluation, that's the most important job, evaluating the evaluators. In my travels, my favorite place was when I was teaching, and I would escape on vacation when I was teaching and keep teaching and coaching in Arizona, would be to travel the Apache Trail or the Outlaw Trail through the mountains. But my favorite place, beyond the Grand Canyon, was Canyon de Chelly near Shenli, which goes down there. It's a four-wheel drive path, and you end up at Window Rock, which is the Native American capital. And it's quite an adventure, let me tell you. If ever you get the chance, do it. So my job is, I'll give you a little evaluation of our Toastmaster and especially our evaluators. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Phil. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our table topics master, Mark Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. It's that time, everybody's favorite portion of the Toastmasters meeting. And I want to thank Dr. Stevens for helping itemize all the potential candidates for me this morning. It appears to be a target-rich environment for me. So I think I will start out with someone who is in the room, Nancy Ferry. And Nancy, I'll give you a few minutes to get up to the lectern and I'll babble a bit to tee up your question. Vacations. I've never really taken a lot of exotic vacations. Probably my favorite place to go is Las Vegas in a general sense, because I've been there many times and I have a great time there. Hawaii is probably the all-time favorite, but I keep talking myself out of going back there because it's just so expensive and so far, and I find other alternatives. But Nancy, tell us about your all-time favorite vacation spot, your favorite escape. Please be sure to use the word.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters. My favorite escape was, I bought a book. No, I think I took it out of the library. It was called The Hidden Southwest. And it had all these funky little places that weren't necessarily on the travel guides. Well, I picked them all. And we went to this, I remember we went to this hotel in Oatman, Arizona, which was right on the edge of the desert. And I was planning to go in August. I know, don't even say anything. Little warm. I know it was hot, but I didn't know it was going to be that hot. So I was making my reservations as all good tourists would do in January. I want to give the people my credit card so I can have a room in this Oatman. They said, don't worry, you don't need a credit card. And I said, no, I want to make sure there's a room. She said, nope, don't worry about it. I said, well, how do you know? You don't even know my name. She goes, we'll know you. And I didn't know what she was talking about. And I was so anxious that when I got to this hotel that all the rooms were going to be booked, I was going to have to go somewhere else. We're the only people in the hotel. We pulled up to this little town that used to be a gold mining town back in the early 1900s.
And all these burros and donkey, whatever, there were burros, I guess, came out to greet me at the car. And the only way to get rid of them is with either a spray bottle of water or a carrot, and I had neither. So I walked into one of the stores, and they had these little spray bottles you could buy, or you could buy carrots, and I fed them all the way. The one place to eat was in the bottom of the hotel, and it was also a drinking place for the locals. And the locals would tell all these horrible stories about people from the north that ended up in mine shafts. We left first thing in the morning. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Nancy. So in terms of bucket list escapes, I have a few. I've never been to Europe. That's on the bucket list. More certainly a domestic trip, never been to the Grand Canyon. And I also, at some point in my life, would like to go somewhere north and unfortunately cold so I can see the northern lights. So I'll ask our next candidate, Beth Banks. Beth, what is your bucket list escape or escapes?
You're muted, Beth. Beth,
There we go.
pause, there you go.
Okay. Where I would like to escape, places on my bucket list, a couple of them, they're going back to places I've been to, perhaps a little different. When I was in high school, which you guys know was many, many years ago, I went to Quebec City. I would love to go back to Quebec City. I would definitely want to stay at Le Chateau Frontenac because that is where we stayed when I was in high school. I would like to go back to New Orleans and not take my husband. I love my husband, but he and I definitely had different ideas about how that trip would go. He thought it would be so cool to go on an alligator trip. That was not my idea of a good time. Next time I go to New Orleans, I'm taking Kate and Wally because they'll go where I want to go. Another place I would definitely go back to is Salzburg. Mark, you said you've not been to Europe. Go to Salzburg, Austria. It was beautiful. Even the very, very smarmy bus Sound of Music trip was fun. But the city itself, the history, it was just gorgeous. So yes, I have bucket list places I would like to go to. I would go back to those places. I don't see the time, but I think that would be it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Beth. Our third contestant this morning, Marty Johnston. Marty, who fell on the sword since he was not prepared for the speech that was scheduled. Marty, accordingly, I'm going to give you a more challenging question here. I will remove the boundaries of time and space for you and ask you, what planet, fictional or real, would you like to spend a vacation on? Marty Johnston.
You're muted,
Marty. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, Topics Master, fellow members and guests. Mars. Would I like to escape to Mars? Well, I've never been to Mars, and I don't think any of you have either been to Mars. Well, I would take a couple members from AM Lockport, and we would take a trip to Mars. And we'd have to do some research first because we'd have to be prepared. And I know that we'd be traveling to Mars around Halloween time. And I would hope that there would be Mars bars there when we get to Mars. And that would be, the diet would be Mars bars. A little different recipe, but we would have it probably at least a couple times a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For any of you cooks or chefs out there, I'm sure you could. I would love to have you come along on the trip with me because I love Mars bars. I would bring plenty of film and pens and paper, and I would take notes, I would take photos, I would bring them back, and I would hope that they would get some publicity. One other person I would bring with me is my brother-in-law, Mark, from Rochester, who is semi-retired, and he's a great artist. I don't know if any of you ever seen his work on Facebook. His name's Mark the Cracker, and he paints murals, and he's involved with Muromania, which groups of people in that area paint murals along the canal, on canal towns and buildings that are surrounded by the canal. So if possible, if there's any place on Mars that we could make a mural, I'm sure my brother-in-law, Mark, would love that. So Mr. Topics Master, fellow members, if I had the opportunity to go to Mars, that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. It's unfortunate that Mars wasn't the word of the day because you would have been the all-time champion in Toastmasters history. Since we are short on speakers, we will extend table topics a wee bit. I think I will return back to the room and select Thomas Heldwine. Thomas, if you could start to approach the lectern, please. Thomas, most of us have probably been fortunate enough to take several vacations in our lifetime, some good, some bad, some ugly. Thomas, what is your worst train wreck vacation that you've ever had?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. The worst trip I ever took, there has to be a tie. One was, I went for business. I guess it wasn't in a vacation, but it definitely stands out where I met a bunch of executives who were just happened to be in India, and they invited me out to dinner. Well, my India trip, which was supposed to last 2 weeks, started off with food poisoning the very first night, because one of the things with India I learned very quickly and will always recommend for everyone is take all your own food and water, an entire suitcase. Because food poisoning is something that, just like Mexico and other places that you've heard of, does occur. When it does, it will ruin the trip. The trip is over. For days, you're going to be really sick, dehydrated, and not feel like the trip was a good one. So it doesn't sound fun to pay for an extra suitcase full of food and water, but that can definitely save a trip and help you escape the horrors of Montezuma's revenge. The second one would be, for years, my favorite trips were family trips where we went to either Disney World or what's the other one down in Orlando, the Universal. And the other one that we stopped going to because we had a bad time was Sesame Place in New Jersey, right near Philadelphia. We made a trip one time where we went to Philadelphia first, and then we were going to go to Sesame Place. Now, Sesame Place is great because especially for little children, and we made sure to go the first week of school, which no kids are there. The season ticket holders aren't going to miss the first week of school. The regular people aren't going to be there. My son broke his arm, and that was the worst thing that ever happened on a vacation. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Thomas. We'll go one more, shall we? Kate Orr, I believe you no longer have an assigned job. someone who will remain unnamed just pointed that out to me, threw you under the bus. So Kate, I will ask you this. I have just presented you with an all expenses paid vacation to a destination, and you would rather shoot yourself in the foot so you don't have to go. What is your least favorite vacation that you could possibly go on? Kate.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. I'm not that kind of person. I can't imagine shooting myself in the foot for just for any kind of trip. Honestly, I suppose if I really had nothing to pay for, I mean, my goodness, maybe it would be, so my mother just mentioned like a smarmy bus trip that it was the Sound of Music, like a very commercialized kind of a thing in Salzburg. So I did that myself too, because when I was in Salzburg, it was pouring, the weather was awful. So the group of us ladies who were there, we decided to bite the bullet and do that tour, but it still was fun. So I suppose I would shoot myself in the foot before I went on like a very organized bus trip that was very structured with a bunch of folks who were miserable travelers. So you probably can all think of what I'm talking about. You like pick the most magical place you've always wanted to be, whether it's part of Africa, a part of Europe, a part of South America, you've always wanted to go, and then you land there. And you're there with the most miserable Americans who are complaining about every possible thing. I shouldn't just throw Americans under the bus while we're throwing under the bus. There's a lot of other world travelers who can be miserable to travel with. So just whoever these unnamed people are, I'm stuck with them, and everything is very scheduled. You have to be up at 5 a.m. and you all eat the same breakfast, and then you have to be on the bus, and it's a horrible bus ride. And then you all have to do every single tour together, and you're crammed in like sardines to every single place, and you can't enjoy and relax and really soak in wherever the experience is. So the worst would be if it's a place that I absolutely adore, but I'm forced to go on one of those all expense paid kind of a trip where you just have to go through everything super fast, every place, like this city, now another city, now another city, boom, you had a great time, right? No, I didn't see a darn thing. Thank you. I never got to escape at all. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Kate. I think that's enough, fellow Toastmasters. At this point, I would ask our timer, Len, for a timer's report, please.
Thank you, Mark. I'm proud to announce that all 5 of our contestants qualified time-wise. Nancy at 2:01, Beth at 1:31, Marty 1:45, Tom 2:09, and Kate at 2:09. Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you very much, Len. And I would ask our word master, Eric, for a word master's report.
Mr. Table Topics Master, 3 out of the 5 has used the word of the day. Kate used it once, Beth used it once, Thomas used it once. I did not hear the word from Nancy Ferry or Marty. So Kate, Beth, and Tom used the word.
Apparently Nancy used it.
Nancy used it.
Oh, Nancy used it. Okay. I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, we had a rebuttal in the room. All right, there you have it, fellow Toastmasters. You have 4 candidates to choose from. Nancy, Beth.
Marty used it too, all 5.
Marty, all right.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody used it then.
Like I said, you have all 5 candidates to choose from. Please cast your vote for Nancy, Beth, Marty, Thomas, or Kate. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mark. Appreciate it. And thank you for extending it because we are ahead of schedule. And with that, I'm going to give another how travel can impact your life. It deepens our appreciation. When we come home from vacation, we appreciate what we have. We enjoy being back home. And after, depending where you went, maybe we're thankful that we do not live there. It was a good place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live in certain places. So it gives us appreciation for what we have. Personally, every time I come home from vacation, the first thing I do literally, Before I even run to the bathrooms, I run to the backyard and check on my garden. Make sure I water it and pick the fruit and veggies because it's literally, okay, when I'm on vacation, I have the, what is it called? The Ring app, so I can look at my plants literally while I'm on vacation, make sure that they haven't fallen over or they're bad. So that's what I appreciate. And before we get to our speakers, I want to do a toast to our speakers because they're going to travel to the virtual or physical lectern. And congratulations to all of our upcoming speakers. Now, I believe the order is going to be Jackie Kenny is going to evaluate Tracy. So I believe, Jackie, you're up first.
Who else is available?
All right, I'm confused, but you're Tracy's evaluator? Okay, I'm not evaluating Tracy.
Oh, you're not.
So Michael Licata is going to come up now.
Ah, perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Tracy is speaking out of the Dynamic Leadership Pathway, Level 3, Negotiating the Best Outcome. Mr. Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes. I do believe you have the title, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Tracy Farrell.
All right. Thank you. And I apologize for the confusion of our speaking order. Tracy's title is What's My BATNA? We'll find out what that is. Take it away, Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. What's my BATNA? Okay, you're probably all wondering, what does BATNA mean? And what does it have to do with negotiations anyways? Well, none of us can escape negotiations. Have you ever tried to organize 5 friends to go out to dinner sometime? You have to come up with the date, the time, and the place. And of course, everybody's busy for the next 2 weeks. After work, they have to take care of their kids or watch their dog. And trying to find a place is impossible. Some people are on low carb diets, so you can't go to an Italian restaurant, and we're sick of Chinese restaurants. Trying to find a place. You can't escape negotiations. And that's true in my job too. In the last year, we've done a revaluation, and people have had numerous opportunities to come in and dispute their assessments. And that's a really emotionally charged issue. Who would know that the value of your home is so emotional? I've had people come in and crying at my desk. Other people come in yelling and screaming. But we all have to come up with a strategy to fight these negotiations, or negotiate. I shouldn't say fight, negotiate. And part of my strategy is finding the best alternative to no agreement, or BATNA. And sometimes when you're trying to negotiate where you're going to go to dinner, the best alternative may be Applebee's. We all have to find that good medium spot. I have 3 simple strategies to work my way through this because people are emotionally charged. And the first one is separate the person from the problem. And this was actually an issue. As I was writing this speech, I made this mistake. I was at a fundraiser earlier this week, and one of the sponsors to the fundraiser owed the city a whole bunch of money. And I was incensed. I was like, how can we let this guy be our sponsor? I kind of mentioned it to our chairman at the end of the night. He's like, well, that's not our problem. That's the city's problem. Once again, I was taken back. I was like, you're a former alderman. You love the city more than I do. But he was right. I was putting the person with the problem. Our committee had nothing to do with the city. Got to separate the person from the problem. The second thing is keep emotions out of it. When people are fighting their assessments, they'll come in, they'll yell and scream. You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea. This is illegal. You have no right to do this. You're raising my taxes. And my first response is to get defensive. But people are going to throw you off your game when you're getting defensive, because my strategy is What's the value of your house? And if I'm defending myself, I'm not defending the value of the house. You have to do a little bit of negotiation jitsu. Stick to your point. Don't let them bring you down that hole. Ignore those attacks on you and stick to the point. And finally, you have to end on a positive note. We all have left jobs before, and you always know that you leave on a positive note. Leave 2 weeks notice, whatever. One of the things I have to do is, okay, so maybe I have a disagreement with this person about their assessment. I'm going to come to them. Lockport's a small town. I'm going to come to them about a different issue sometimes. They may be my grocer. They could be another owner or somebody that I'm dealing with. Leave on a positive note when you're dealing with this. Maybe that just means saying, thank you. I appreciate your input. We'll come back together. Or sometimes when they've attacked you a lot, it's like, thank you for your time, but leave it on a positive note. No matter what the negotiation is, we all have to deal with it. If that means we're every Friday night for 7 weeks at Applebee's, it's really not about where you're at. It's enjoying the people you're with. And that's kind of pointed out in a poem put out by Mother Teresa. We've all heard the poem anyways. And in it, it says that if you're honest and frank, people will cheat and lie. Be honest and frank anyways. And the last line of that poem is, it was never about you and them anyways. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Tracy. Appreciate it. Now, I think I got this right. It was a 50-50 chance. I believe now we have Jackie Kenny coming up to evaluate Toastmaster Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I am pleased to evaluate Mr. Smith this morning. He's pulling out something that some of us have seen before. And this time of year, I know you're all going to enjoy it. Do you have his title, Mr. Toastmaster?
I do not.
He has not fit this into a project, but it's something he enjoys delivering as much as we will all enjoy hearing it. All for your listening pleasure, Steve Smith with Quoth the Raven, nevermore. No. Oh, sorry. I guess I had that on my mind. Let's try that again. The Telltale Heart, which would normally be a project of reading, but he's just going to wing it. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
My time, Mr. Timer, will be 10 to 12 minutes for this. Okay. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say I'm mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was a sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and on the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I tell you the whole story. It is possible to say when the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture with a pale blue film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now, this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should see how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed and no light shone out. And then I thrust my head in. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. This I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when day broke, I went boldly into his chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, inquiring how he passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night just at 12, I looked in upon him as he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph to think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I barely chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. The room was black as pitch with thick darkness, the shutters closed, fastened through fear of robbers. So I knew he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing in steadily, steadily. I had my head in. I was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped on the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up and then cried, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in bed listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It's not the groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it welled up within my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew he'd been lying there awake ever since the first light arose. When he turned in his bed, his fears had been growing ever since, growing on him. He had been trying to fancy them cautious, but could not. He'd been trying to say to himself, it's nothing but the wind in the chimney. It's only a mouse crossing the floor, or merely a cricket that made a single chirp. Yes, he'd been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he found them all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him, and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel my presence of my head in the room. When I waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a little, very, very little crevice in the lantern, so I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot from the crevice and fell full on the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all in a dull blue and a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon that damned spot. Have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but an overacuteness of the sense? Now I say, Now came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch make when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could to maintain the rate upon the eye. Meanwhile, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker, quicker, louder, and louder with every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say louder every moment. You mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous, so I am. And now at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of the old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the greeting grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst. And now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern, leaped in the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor, pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse, cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber, deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I'd been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart. What had I to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor. During the night, suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled. What had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room, desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat on the very spot which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definitiveness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased. What could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I grasped for breath, yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently. The noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, and the noise arose, overall, continued, increased, grew louder, louder, louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. Anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt I must scream or die. And now, again, Hark, louder, louder, louder. Villains, I shriek. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart.
Thank you, Toastmaster Steve. Can we get a timers report?
Mr. Toastmaster. Tracy spoke for 5:07. She qualified, and Steve came in at 11:44. He also qualified under his parameters. Mr. Toastmaster.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Timer. And since we're ahead of schedule, we're going to give our evaluators a few minutes to get their thoughts together. So I'd like to, and I'll admit during table topics, I ran downstairs and got some coffee. So I don't know who participated and who didn't, but Carol, I'd like to ask you, what was your favorite vacation or where would you like to go?
My probably favorite vacation is Hawaii. I've been there 3 times. I would like to return, except it is so far away. If I lived on the West Coast, I'd probably try to go to Hawaii more. And I agree with you. I have taken 2 cruises to Bermuda and 1 to Hawaii. And you can't beat the price when you think of what it would cost to eat, what it would cost to get a room, and the entertainment alone. So I think cruising is a very good. And of course, I always enjoyed going to Disney, and where you can go to Magic Kingdom and escape the world for a day.
Exactly. Thank you much for sharing. And Margot, same question.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it took us 30 years to even go on a vacation. And as you know, I do love to cruise. However, Jim has been asked to attend a conference in Las Vegas at the end of December. And I have nothing planned. So he has gotten a hotel room, not at the hotel where the conference is because they were completely booked, but up the road a little bit. So I am going to sit by the pool and read and take naps and do absolutely nothing for 3 days. And considering I have worked virtually every day, with just a few exceptions since COVID started, it's going to be my first true vacation in 2 years. So that is my plan for a vacation. I have no idea what else there is to do in Las Vegas, but I intend to do absolutely nothing, which is a complete shocker to everybody I know.
It's going to be tough to do nothing in Vegas, but good luck with that. And finally, reasons we should travel, because it gives us a collection of moments, and in life, we should collect moments, not things. And with that, we're going to start with our first evaluator, Mike Licata.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning again, fellow Toastmasters. Real quick, my favorite escape is the experience of going to ballparks, and my favorite ballpark is Wrigley Field in the north side of Chicago, because I went before I got really, really commercialized, and it's a good time to just hang out, have a couple of adult beverages before the game, enjoy the baseball game, have a couple more adult beverages, and then probably pick up a Chicago beef after the game. And with that, I will start my evaluation of Tracy. Tracy, thank you for presenting us a unique experience. Your role and one of the true values of this club as a community club is we have different experiences so we can learn from each other. It's important that you presented it negotiation that way, because a lot of people, as they get into Toastmasters longer, some of the skills we need to learn and negotiate, one of them is negotiating. I have to give you a lot of credit because it's probably a job I couldn't do because I do get yelled and screamed at all summer, but I don't think I could do it when it comes to money because I everyone has a breaking point and I get to leave. You have to be there and you have to explain yourself. So I have to give you a lot of credit when you do your job. My advice to homeowners in the city is make sure you spend all that money on remodeling the inside of the house. So when they go to inspect it, they don't notice all the notice the true improvements of the house. Or you could just bribe her because she's in Toastmasters, which I've already done. Bribing a public official always works. Some of the things that I would do differently, and I know it's because your size and stature, being behind the lectern at your size really doesn't work. And I know maybe we should look into getting a platform that some of our other members could stand on so we make a different impact when it comes to speaking behind the lectern. I know one of the things I wrote down was work out in front of the lectern, but your speech is more impactful behind the lectern because it's a more serious speech, because you did such a great job giving us advice when it comes to developing negotiating skills. So that would be probably my biggest complaint is I know you stand on your tippy toes. It's just the way the lectern works and the size of the room, it's not gonna get easier. So maybe that's something we could explore going forward. But I want to thank you again for sharing your experiences, a very unique experience, and we do a really, really good job of learning from each other in this club. And I'm looking forward to your journey in the dynamic leadership path, and I want to wish you good luck going forward. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mike. And I just want to point out to the powers that be in the room that we did not get a poll for the speakers as of yet. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our evaluator number 2, Jackie. Jackie, if you'd like to share a travel story with us as well, that'd be wonderful.
Well, my favorite vacation ever was not the one in the Adirondacks where a bear ran through our camp at night. And it was not the time we were robbed in Euston Station in London of 100 pounds. However, I've had a lot of very nice vacations. Steve, thank you so much. I'm sorry I took the edge off your drama. I did not write down the title, and I guess I was just thinking about you doing the Raven, which is wonderful. But equally wonderful was the Telltale Heart. The suspense and tension that you built up during your reading was very well done. You gave us a person who was afraid and nervous and used your voice to bring all those qualities out. I guess one of the things that I would do to improve your delivery would be to dress up. More of a costume feel would really enhance this speech. It's an escape from reality and a little bit scary and tense. So maybe a nice ruffled tuxedo shirt would give us a little bit more of that formal feeling that I think it needs. But I wouldn't judge you too harshly because you did a wonderful job. You gave us the words of your favorite author, and it's so obvious how much you revere Edgar Allan Poe. And I think that anyone who hears you doing some of his work is always going to feel like they've been at a very important event. You bring it to a higher level. You don't just read what's going on. You put a lot of action in your voice. And that's a nice model for beginning Toastmasters to see how much drama there can be by simply reading and putting yourself into that story. So thank you very much for that, Steve. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jackie. And can we once again get a timers report?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, both of our evaluators qualified this morning, Mike Licata at 2:38 and Jackie at 2:26. The poll will be up shortly.
Thank you. Perfect. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our general evaluator. Mr. Evaluator, if you'd like to call on all the roles after that, we always enjoy your Philisms, so it's up to you.
Mr. Toastmaster, thank you very much. Now, today I am working with 1.5 eyes, meaning that my retina still has some air bubbles in there. So I'm looking at doubles and triples and bad visions overall. But I'm going to do the job. Anne Marie, I like that quote. One thing I pointed out, I'm going to take a little liberty here, Dave Licata, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the meeting. We need guests. And we all know that, so let's put that on high on our agenda. Guests. As I said, my theme that you put up, Mr. Toastmaster, one of my favorites. Enjoyed it very, very much. And I'm going to tell another little story in a few seconds here there we go. I had to do my voting. Now we had table topics filled in very nicely. One of the things that with Marty, he couldn't fill in as a speaker. Thank goodness for Steve to fill it in and did it about the same time that Marty would have had to. And in Toastmasters, we know we don't have to apologize because Marty, I know you're a busy person. Give it everything you got to get it in. But if you can't, you can't, and you graciously backed out and let us know. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, let's move on to Tracy, and I didn't know who Mr. Smith was to start off with. Then all of a sudden I realized it was Mr. Steve. Let's talk about these evaluators for a second here. Jackie, I put down one word for you, smooth. You are very, very smooth in what you did. And I enjoyed the evaluation because Steve does a great job with it. And you gave him some good constructive criticism, and he has a lot of passion for that. And I really liked how you added something in there to help him with possibly big, because I know with Steve, he'll dress up. And it was last minute thing, but he will dress up when he has to. We all know that, and he does a great job, and it would add to it. Now, Michael, I feel that evaluation was well thought out. I do agree with the idea. Now, Tracy's speech, in my opinion, needed to use the lectern simply because of the way it was going to be presented. I think it needed to have it, and I think a stool would. I've mentioned this before, is simply because I have my one sister. She is also petite, and anytime I say anything that's a wise remark, my sister Molly will come up and smack me right in the head for that. But I think it will help all of our people that are, challenged with the elevation of their height. A little step stool might help in this kind of a speech. I was going to say, well, that would take away that if Tracy went out in front, but that's not the speech that you're going to be giving. And so that would be thrown out. So I thought, and for me at this one, I know Tracy was on her tippy toes because I've seen it myself in the last evaluation. But her speech, as you said, was excellent. Very well thought out. I loved that speech. It was really good. Now, let's see. Now, my last thing is a little quick trip I took with my sister Jeannie. I was in Tucson. Jeannie was in someplace in Boston, I think. And we met in Vegas. She flew in, I drove up. And we spent the night. We were going to get a room, but when we ended up, lost a little bit of money. They bought us breakfast, and we went out the door and said, wait a minute, we can't get a room. It's sunny out. It was already late, so we gambled all night. And so we went to get the breakfast they bought us. And I had one last silver dollar, and I stuck it in one of those machines, and sure enough, won all of our money back. So we broke even completely and took off for Lake Powell and went for a quick swim first thing in the morning. That was pretty refreshing. Then we head to the Grand Canyon, North Rim. If you haven't been there, you are missing out one of the greatest treasures in the United States. Then I think we did spend the night there. Then we went off, there's a great hotel there. Then we went off to the canyon. My sister Jeannie, she was not happy because it was so hot. And I had my Land Cruiser with no air conditioning, but I said, the windows are open. What's good? We got a bottle of water with us, an extra tank of gas, and we'll be fine. And she said, well, we got to have water. I got to go swimming. I said, well, there's a river down there about 1,000 feet down. Why don't you climb down there? She would have whacked me again. And so we went to Zion and, the different national parks there, and then on to Aspen, Colorado to see our sister Lisa for a little bit of partying. We, being the not so rich and not so famous, went out and partied with the famous and rich in Aspen, Colorado, and had a great time there for a night. Then the long drive across the country. Okay, the Badlands, that's cool. But you know where we went? We had to do it. Two of the greatest wonders of the world are in the United States. Grand Canyon, and our last stop was Niagara Falls, right here in the good old Western New York. So that was a great trip, and it was really outstanding. And I only had to put up with a couple of hits in the head from my sister Jeannie and a few of her complaints that it was too hot. But that's what you get when you're driving on a four-wheel drive and go cross country, because the roads we took weren't all paved, let me tell you. Now, we need to get on to our people that have their jobs. I got to call on those guys. And if you wish to, you could tell me about any one of your what do we call it? Vacations or trips or escapes. Let me pull up the agenda and we'll go back up here and we'll go down here when we had the, we're going to save the word miss. Where's our girl, Marion? Sylvia, did Sylvia take off or is she still around? Sylvia Baptiste, your turn. Come on up, Marion. I know I made a bunch of mistakes there, so why don't you come on up here and tell us?
Bunch of mistakes. No, you didn't do badly. As I'm going to start off though with one of my favorite trips, and it happened. We took a trip year before COVID broke out, and it was to Nashville. And it wasn't just the Nashville environment. I mean, they were partying at 9 in the morning. All the restaurants and the bars are going and the music's going. You would think it was like a Friday or Saturday night here in Western New York at 9 in the morning. It was unbelievable. But it was the people I was with. I was with my 3 siblings and their spouses. And we had many cousins too as a family reunion. And I think traveling has to do with the people you're with. If you are with some duds, you're not going to enjoy your trip. So that was one of the best ones. And also, hopefully, the future trips that we do together will be just as much fun. Eric had a couple A's to start the day off. Mark had one so. Mark Campos had the most colorful language this morning. I really enjoyed it. I shouldn't say colorful, it was fun language. Target-rich environment, candidates fell off the sword. It was many different verbs or sayings he used. It was fun. Nancy won Beth won so. Stephen Smith, great job with the voice increasing at the end, caught everyone's attention. David Jones also used Jamaican slang, man. I like that. That was fun. Marty had 2 start overs. Mike Licata, really, leave out the really. Try to use something else in place of it. And Phil had a couple ums. And I think that's it for a grammarian. I know there was more, but like I'm learning myself of picking out these things. And if it's not really disastrous, I don't hear it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much there, Sylvia. Let's see, I still got on, not on mute anymore. I hope. All right. Now, because we've combined the master and grammarian together, now we have to go and look and see who's next. Well, how about the quiz master? Find out if anybody was listening and how many people were falling asleep. Let's bring up who we got here is our, as I said, I'm working with 1.5 eyes. That's not a good thing to do, let me tell you. Here he comes.
Oh,
All right.
well, how you doing, those
There, Mark Crane, come on up. I'm glad you're there.
for, as
Quiz.
master, I had to pick apart and actively listen today, which is very difficult to do. And I've got a few questions for you. What difficulties did Tom have on his trip to India?
Food poisoning.
That's right. And Eric's family visited one state several times. He mentioned that. Beth Banks, what was on her bucket list?
New Orleans. Without her hands up.
Anne Marie talked about what 2 places? One was in this side of the pond and
Sicily, California, because her son's in California.
in San Jose.
And her family of gangsters.
Well, we've heard that. The Sicilians have a tendency to group as with those folks there. Kate Orr had a pet peeve that was the root of her vacation escape. And what was that? What bothered her the most about being with people on the road?
Structured bus trips.
Bus trips with what type of people?
People that might be there.
They didn't travel very well, and we got in a couple of those myself as we escaped to Sicily and Rome. We always went with a church group, and I would love to go back there, but mainly without the baggage. And there was somebody else that went to Quebec and had a spouse, I think, considered was excess baggage, maybe to leave home. Okay. And that's what I have for today. Thank you.
All right, Mark, way to go. That's a good job. All right. Now, before I call up our word master, I have one more escape that I thought might be worth mentioning. I was with a bunch of my friends and we were going from Denver to Aspen, Colorado to visit my sister again. And we took Independence Pass. It's only open for a few months out of the year because it gets snowed in. But at the top of that pass, it's a neat little town. It's the highest incorporated town in the United States. Leadville, I think it's called. And there is a great saloon on Main Street there. We stopped in, had a couple of adult beverages and a good bowl of soup. Unfortunately, Willie Daniels, who was with us, or one of our past members, he had part of the copper top. We call him copper top after that because the handle off the pot fell into his soup. And the guy comes out and says, "Oh, I've been looking for that for all day. I'm glad you found it for me." It's just an experience of traveling through the countryside, and then up in Leadville. I will tell you this: they don't get much oxygen up there, so the people up there are a little strange. So let's call up our word master and see how the escape did, and see what his great escape was. Let's bring up Eric Schneider.
Mr. General Evaluator Phil, you snuck it in, so you're the winner today of 3 times of using escape. I know Mark used it once, Tracy used it once, and anybody else that did, very good job. So let's all escape to the weekend. That's what I'm looking forward to, is escape to the weekend. So use escape throughout the day and weeks ahead. Thank you.
All right. Good old Eric. All right. David, you want to close up and turn it back over to our president, just to give a few final thoughts on your topic for today? Let's see.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
There you go, Dave. Thanks.
Thank you much. And I received the winners, our favorites. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to announce them, but I don't know if that's a present. All right, thank you, Mr. President. All right, so drum roll. Our table topics favorite speaker was Nancy. Congratulations, Nancy. Cool. Our favorite evaluator was Jackie Kenny. Congratulations, Jackie. And our favorite speaker was Steve, or Mr. Smith. Congratulations, everybody. And I'm going to go with what Phil said, is that AM Lockport, you need more guests. My club here in Charlotte, we have 3 to 4 guests a week, only because we are hybrid. You all are hybrid, and you need to be marketing more. What we do at our club is at least once a month, we have a guest speaker. We had somebody come talk about TEDx talks, because that was part of being a Toastmaster. We had another person come another month, talked about starting a podcast, because that is also part of Pathways. We have somebody coming in to talk about poetry. If you've ever been to a poetry reading, they are very passionate about the words. We just try different things, change it up a little bit in order to attract guests. But the main thing is marketing on your district websites and getting the guests in there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, David. On my to-do list is to reach out to you and get all that advice to get more members in, because that's something our main goal is for sure. In that vein of thinking, we are going to have an open house on the 10th of November. Jill Roaring is going to lead that. I don't know if she wants to talk about that. She's standing up here, so she is coming up. So she's going to talk a little about that.
Okay. They're Toastmaster of the day that day.
Let's see. Thanks, Mark Campbell, for let's check.
November 10th.
It is Mark Campos.
Okay, Mark Campos. Are you comfortable being Toastmaster of the day that day for our open house?
Mark,
He had to drop.
He had to leave.
He had to leave. Okay, well, I will reach out to him and ask him. Eric, you've been doing a good job with PR the last couple weeks. Would you like to make up a little flyer again?
I'm in the process of doing that right now.
All right, thank you very much. And if the more people that local can be in person, that would be the best, one of the best things we could do here, as far as if we do get in-person guests. It would be bad if we had only 10 people here. Let's have a huge turnout if we can. And I think that's all I've got to say about it. So.
Great. Well, we'll do some organizing behind the scene as well. We had officers meeting yesterday and had some ideas, which I will share with Jill later. We do officer training. Speaking of that, officer type things, November 5th and November 8th, that's a Saturday and a Tuesday. Links will be coming. We have an opportunity, possibly, Kate had a great idea at our officers meeting, about a high performance leadership project. And we have many connections with Lockport Television. So if someone is interested in leading that charge, we have done it before. It could be a short series of speeches. And they would be happy to have us do it, Jackie said, and I know we have a couple people that are trained there as well. Mark and Tom, and Jackie's been there numerous times, awesome hosts. So we do have some connections. So that's a pretty easy high leadership performance project. So if anybody wants to lead that, I'll give them the opportunity. Just contact me and we'll make that happen. If not, we'll find someone else. Margot, do you want to talk about your murder mystery you have going on Saturday?
My murder mystery on Saturday. So it is the 100th anniversary of the town of Recrab. That is Barker spelled backwards. And you may not know this, but Bison Bob's Jamboree has come to town. And he has brought some very interesting people with him. Our sharpshooter, Mark S. Mann, Mr. Smith. Our horse riders, Connie and Blythe. Hello, Mrs. Orr. And we also have, of course, Bison Bob. I am your mayor, Clinta Westwood. We also have our horse trainer, E. Westrian. Hello, Nancy. And we introduce ourselves. We do a 4-course wine and food pairing dinner, and you have to solve the murder of that very famous vaudeville dancer, Beryl Esca. I didn't do it. It's not me. I'm the mayor. I'm going to protect my town. So if you want some more information on tickets, give me a call later today. I will be in the winery starting at 9 o'clock this morning, 778-7001, and we'll talk to you then.
Sounds great. I want to give kudos to Beth, our treasurer. She's straightened out our accounts and most of the members have paid. So we're in good standing. 32 once they're all paid. So that's pretty good. In addition to that, the schedule it was pointed out is not posted on our website because what's that?
I'll get to it there.
Okay, and there may be a few changes to that, Len, so coordinate with Len, so we can get the updated schedule on the website, just to update members that haven't paid and the schedule there. So we'll straighten that out, so make sure make it easy for the Toastmasters going forward. We do want to announce a split club winner, 345-548. 548. Nancy is the winner, and we'll give her again. She is amazing. She's a very lucky person, apparently. Before me, I was 4-6. So you see, Mark Crane is the winner. Okay, so we'll give him his winnings. Congratulations. For next week, speakers, Dave Licata. Yes, Dave, you are a speaker, alternate speaker, Marty Johnston. And maybe you can give it up to Marty then if you guys can coordinate. Nancy Ferry, Phil Russell, the Toastmaster is Ryan. He has been reached out to already to make sure he is aware. Because he is in and out in regards to dealing with his new family. He's a busy guy. Any other quick announcements? We have 3 minutes.
I have a brief one,
Okay,
Mr. President.
Okay, great.
I want to thank the club for stepping up and buying a new PC. This small form factor device here has allowed us to escape the entire meeting without one Zoom freeze.
Nice.
We'll be retiring my old laptop there. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. So that'll make things a lot nicer for our online participants. So good job with improving the tech, Len.
Mr. President.
Yes, Bill.
I won't be able to participate in other than just a volunteer simply because my eye is starting to heal properly, but I can't really focus on doing things like doing the general evaluator or table topics was easy because I don't have to prepare anything and do any writing down. And he has me on very limited use of my eye. So if it can, just take me off that schedule and then I'll be back on after November, probably mid-November or end of November.
Okay, sounds good, because he is listed as speaker, so I can do that speech. I have one prepared. So we can contact Ryan and I will just put my name in there. So just drop out of that if you could on the website, Bill, and I'll throw myself in there.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and I hope you enjoyed the meeting. Look forward to the next one. Have a great day.
Yes,
Tom's Diner, good. Sounds good to me.